This show is brought to you by Celltech MD, the leader in regenerative medicine, balancing your body from the inside out. We need a theme song other than the Jim Gypsy theme song. Like if we need our own.
Did you do like a Bob Barker type? Like, is that what you
Well,
just
it was
did?
like somewhere between The Price is Right and Top Gear. Like come
Okay. Okay.
on down, you know.
By the way, speaking of game show hosts, have you seen Drew Carey lately and what he looks like?
Didn't he lose a lot of weight?
Amongst other things, yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
he
What else
looks
did he
like
lose? His nose? Like,
no, he's got hair and
oh shit.
and a lot
Okay.
of it, and a lot of it, and he's got a weird soul patch goatee thing going on. The
Drew
only reason,
Carey is one of those guys that I feel like he was really cool back in the day. Like I really liked the Drew Carey show. His stand-up was great. And
whose
then
line is it anyways?
Whose
Is
Line
probably
was
one
it
of
in?
the greatest TV shows ever.
Absolutely. Well, and the thing is like I like the British version, and it's
I
very
never saw the
rare.
British version.
It's very rare when you get a show that's big over in Britain and
Yeah.
then they make an American version of it and it doesn't flop. Like you literally have Whose Line Is It Anyways in The Office. Like
Yes.
those are the only two things I can think of.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
other British show they try to bring over to America fucking
Yeah, dude. I
sucks.
mean, I mean, oh my God. So like, fun fact is I had a theater scholarship to the Philadelphia School of Arts,
I didn't have no
coming out of
idea
high
what
school.
the fuck. That's a bombshell. What the hell? We.
I did, dude. I did musicals. I was like, that was my thing.
Oh, you're fucking trolling me, dude. You didn't do
I'm that
musicals.
dead
You did
serious.
not do musicals. Can you give me Spirit Hands?
I wasn't that like into
Okay.
the like I was Luther Billis in South Pacific. I did Bye Bye Birdie and then Cinderella, the Rodgers and Hamstein's version of Cinderella.
God, I'm gonna have to edit this out of the show, Tom. We can't tell anybody
Yeah,
that.
we can.
Fuck, bro. So
Multi-talented.
wait. So can you sing?
Oh, hell yeah, I can sing.
So did you? Okay. Well, since you're sharing, did you know that I'm a singer as well?
We talked
Like,
about this part. We've talked because we said that like when we get together, we gotta go karaoke in. We've talked about this.
dude, so I played in bands in Memphis. I've got a couple albums and this and that, but it started when I was choir. I was a choir in high
Yeah.
school, and I had a solo in Carnegie Hall. Like we did all
Yeah.
superiors and all state and nationals. Like my choir director ended up being the first recipient of the very first educational Grammy. Like he's got a
Yeah.
Grammy, Jeffrey Redding,
Yeah.
and
That's awesome.
I had a full ride scholarship to go to school for choir, and then my parents moved and blah blah blah. But like that's hilarious, dude. Okay, that's it. We got to rebrand the show.
Yeah. We gotta do something. No,
We've
well,
got the
so the reason
heavyweights, the musical. Like
yeah. Well, the reason I brought it up was because originally, um, I when I was like I remember talking to my parents about like wanting to go to the school, and my dad's like, "What are you gonna do with a performing arts degree, essentially?" And I was like, "I want to do." At that time, I
you can
wanted
act like you have money, even though you're
right,
broke.
exactly, exactly. Well, my whole thing was my like quote unquote gift is improv, like
Yeah,
quick on your feet, like whatever.
yeah.
Because we would do like drills and stuff like that, little like exercises, and I would just crush people because I would like it was like whose line is that anyways? We
You're
would do
like,
this like we would do
yep,
this in between breaks at our musical practices, and I would just be crushing people and getting people to break and laugh constantly. Like we would have like competitions in practice on how to get people who can get somebody to break,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I would always win. And so that was my whole plan was if I do this, I want to try to get on like SNL or Second City or one of these like shows or whatever where like
Yeah.
it's just improv and all that kind of stuff like on the fly and then just go from there. Anyways, parents were like, "You're not gonna make any money, you gotta actually do something." So I decided to be a teacher instead. Um, that's actually not even true. Teaching was my third thing. I originally went to college to be a archiver for the city of Chicago. I went from performing arts to a history degree to a double major in exercise science and physical education.
Well, that's not dissimilar from me. Like when I went to college, I started for recording engineering. I was going to record music.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I wanted to be a recording engineer.
yeah.
So I mean, and then I quickly realized like, holy shit, even if I make it through this and get a 5-year intern, I might make 50 grand a year at some
Yeah.
studio. Like,
Yeah.
no,
My
absolutely. And then
parents,
I was like, no, I'm going to sell automotive junk with my dad and make
yeah.
like 100 grand a year. I'm
Yeah, my
like,
parents were not thrilled about the prospects of it, and which made it even funnier is because my dad was in cover bands and stuff, and my dad has a couple recorded singles and stuff like
oh
that
shit.
in country.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah, so that was just I just thought that was all funny, and then we started talking about this, and I was and then it brought me up to because like my dad and I used to sit up late at night watching Whose Line Is It Anyways because we
Oh,
thought like
love it.
the original cast with Colin, Ryan, Drew, Wayne Brady, and I'm drawing a
Yep.
blank on the other dude.
Wayne Brady. And then you had the ladies too. You got to watch the British version though.
Well, there's a guy. I'm
Back in
drawing
the
a blank.
day, a long time ago, British version used to come up on Comedy Central. It used to come
Yeah,
on.
well, but there was the tall, dark curly haired guy with the glasses. He came over from the British
Yes,
show and
yes.
did the
Well,
American
there
version.
were like two or three of them that came over from the British show,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Also the older dopey looking dude that kind of looked like Dopey the dog or whatever. What's his
yeah.
name?
I know
Come
who
up?
you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He came over too. No, they're
So,
all fantastic.
so
Yeah.
for all the tens of people that watch this, you younger folks,
Are tens of
go
fans.
tons of fans. Go check out Who's Line It Anyway. Any of those clips on YouTube. It is some fun. Like those shows would have gotten canceled in today's culture.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
Some of the
mean,
stuff that the topics and things that they did. But they were awesome because everything in that show was done on the fly. Like those guys had, and that was the genius of the show. And I think why it was so successful is they did a good job of picking, and even the guest people that they picked. Like I
yeah.
had read something that they had tried
The
getting like big.
celebrity guest would be like, and then some people from the crowd.
Well, but they would try to get like big time comedians and stuff to do the show, and they wouldn't do it because of like there was like it would you had no
They
material.
stick to the script. Yeah, yeah,
It was just there was no material. You had to come up with stuff on the fly. So they had a
yeah.
hard time getting like the really big names to come on the show and be guest panelists or whatever they called it.
There is a big difference between someone who's just a funny person and someone who can write good comedy,
Yes.
right? Like, I mean, there's definitely some great comedians out there that write really good bits,
Mhm.
but then there's also some comedians out there. I think the great ones, they're just funny people. Like Will Ferrell can just read the newspaper and you're gonna
Yes.
fucking laugh. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to, like that.
There are
But like I
people,
feel
yeah.
like there are people out there that like, and I'm trying to think of like some like a big name now that's maybe not so good with improv, but I feel like the best comedians are good at improv. There's a show out now called Kill Tony. Have you watched that?
I've heard of it.
It's like it's they get newbie comedians that like want to be
Oh,
comedians come
yes,
in
yes,
and
yes.
they have a chance to make fun of Tony Hinchcliffe and they have celebrity people. They'll have Joe Rogan on there. They'll have like
Yeah.
other
That's where
random comedians on there.
he's like, I'm not retarded, but I like rocks. That's where that guy came from.
Yeah.
That like
Yeah.
so I'm gonna tell you right now that clip came out. No, that's a great segue into actual getting back into training talk.
Yeah.
That was a great clip because when that clip came out, I'm pretty sure for almost like 2 weeks straight, my Instagram and TikTok feeds were nothing but strongmen lifting stones and Highland Games guys throwing stones
Like rocks.
to that audio thing. It's like I'm not retarded, but I like rocks. You know what I'm saying? I got one right here. Like it was.
Isn't it funny how you can look at your Instagram feed and then look at like your girls or like one of your friends and like, how the fuck is this so different?
Oh,
Like, how are
my
Instagram feeds so different?
I remember the first time I showed somebody like because like when you go to like the search page, like the algorithm pulls up stuff
Yeah, the hot page, whatever.
for the longest time. Like in the last like 2 months, I have I don't know, I'm gonna go with a curator. I hired somebody to help me with like curating content for my business
Mm.
page, but because I'm logged in on my phone, the algorithm trips for all my accounts with the same content. But if you look on my like search page for the longest time, um it was dogs. It was
You like
like
dogs?
yeah, it was like dogs.
Nice.
It was I said it very Boston there. But it was like dogs, it was like cabins, it was container home build outs, and it was like people lifting weights. Like that was all my page was. And people are like, yeah, and got like, and it just reminds me of like the memes and the reels. It's like, do you wonder if your boyfriend's cheating on you? And it'd be like, nope. And then it's like them building a Star Wars. Like it's like you
Yeah,
look at
yeah,
my
yeah,
thing. It's
yeah.
like, no, I'm sitting here watching container home build outs on Instagram instead of
Yeah.
like doing anything else.
It's like, what's he thinking about? I bet he's thinking about other girls. And like the guy's just over there like, you know, like if a velociraptor
Yeah.
was had a turtle shell on it, it would be invincible or some shit
Yeah,
like, you know, like
exactly.
some
Yeah, it's
shit.
just that's my Instagram feed. Now it's a little bit different because, like I said, I got a curator on there and all this like stuff that we keep like going through, and I'm like, oh my God, this is boring. I was like,
Curator. That's such a proper term for
well, she's not a
like
creator because we're not creating anything. We're just
yeah.
like we're
But
refining
that's
the
all
content.
those big. It's like they're curators of memes. I'm a connoisseur of memes.
Oh, I
Like
100% flat out like I would never call myself ever a content creator. I am a curator because, and I feel the same way honestly about strength and conditioning coaches. Like there are no creators out there. It's all curation because
we
everything
are
is
creators,
recycled.
Tom, because we have created the heavyweight show and we put out nonstop, top tier, A class fucking infotainment weekly
You used a
on
lot of
YouTube.
big words there. I'm proud of
I
you.
know. I know at least three of them
I
too.
know.
Like I was
That was like when you called me earlier today. You like half the words you said. I'm like, I'm
let's have a
surprised.
pre-show meeting. Like
Yeah. It was a pre-show meeting. Justin was actually talking, and then I started making fun of him. That was our pre-show
yeah,
meeting.
that's all it was. No, it was I didn't actually want to do a pre-show meeting. It was what it was. My computer was dead and I didn't have anything else to do. So it's like,
Yeah.
hey, let's just chalk. And I just started taking out like acronyms and like letters and shit. And Tom was like, I'm pretty sure one of those is an STD that you just said.
Yeah. I was
Like,
like, I'm proud of you for knowing that many different words. Yeah, that's how this goes.
shit, man. So
All right.
what's going on in the world of strength and conditioning this week, sir?
I mean, in the world of strength and conditioning, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. The Sheffield Open just happened. Highlights that I saw. Jesus, I don't know how much you follow
Yeah,
powerlifting at
Jesus.
all.
I saw the Jesus squat, right? He beat the
So
world record.
Well, so that's where I'm kind of confused. I'm almost positive. So here's my issue with powerlifting because there are so many big organizations. I'm not even going to bother with the little ones because there's like 200 of those. But like the big organizations that have like world records, like the legitimate world records, there's like two or three of them now. And I'm trying, I've asked a couple people and nobody's been able to like fully clarify for me, but I think I figured out the answer. Ray Williams has squatted 490.
Okay.
490 kilos.
Okay.
And that Jesus Olivares did 484 and they were calling it a record. But what I think the reason they're calling it like that he broke the world record is because Ray Williams did his in knee wraps and Olivares did his in sleeves. And I didn't think that that mattered at the end of the
Um,
day. But
well, it's different. It is different categories, right? Because you have
it well
sleeves
that
and,
well that's what I'm
and
saying.
that's considered geared.
I didn't know that. I just assumed like because I remember when one of my athletes was getting involved in powerlifting, they had like equipped, then they had like geared and then ungeared. And ungeared was essentially like you wore a belt and like and knee sleeves
Light
were
wraps.
considered.
Light
Yeah,
wraps,
like
yeah.
no, not even wraps. Like
Oh no,
it
I mean,
was
yeah, light sleeves and the belt had to be less than 4 inches wide, I think.
yeah. It was like a
Right? Yeah.
weightlifting belt.
Yeah.
And that was so I just assumed it was that. Like I was like, I don't there's not a big difference between wraps and sleeves, whatever. But yeah, so apparently that's why
There
they're
is
calling
though, right? I mean, you know, at least I mean, I could always tell if I use sleeves, like I would always have my sleeves on because I had, you know, knee bothering, you know, from when you're a weightlifter, it's like what a
so I
Ivan
never
Avajayev used to say is like if you're gay, your butt would hurt. So I mean,
yeah.
you're a weightlifter, your
I
knees are
just
gonna hurt.
I don't think I ever got into wraps like enough to get anything out of them. The only time I ever like fully relied on wraps for training and like competing and stuff like that was 2 years ago when I did the Arnold Amateur Worlds. We had a squat for reps event at 650. And at the time, my best squat was 605. And I was just like,
Yeah.
so it was one of those. I was proud of myself. I did a 650 rep in training. I was like, if I get one rep on this event, I will be ecstatic. There were dudes knocking out like 6 or 7 reps. So kudos to them. But that was the only time I ever like
650
used
is no fucking joke, dude. Especially
dude.
in a competition. Like it's
Well,
not like
and it was essentially dead stop. Like it was the one where like they had the weird apparatus, and then you
yeah,
had
yeah,
like the blocks that you had to squat to, hit it, and then they told you to come up. Like it was
yeah.
a rough event. And my problem with the event was like I was actually I feel like I should have gotten one rep. I really do, and I know a lot of guys say that and stuff. So I wrap my and you've done this before. I wrap my knee sleeves,
Mhm.
got ready to go out for the thing. So I you know how you have
Your
to
fucking
time
circulation cut off.
you have to time wrapping your knees.
Oh yeah,
And so
yeah. You
like
got a
I
good, you
had
got a solid 90 seconds until you lose feeling.
and so like I had been like paying attention to the guys before me in terms of like when they finished, when they got them off the floor, when they called you out for like when they called out the next person. So I was sitting there with like a stopwatch timing like the first few because I was towards the end of the group. And so I'm timing it, timing it, timing it. And I'm like, all right, I got this down. Start to put my knee sleeves on, or my knee wraps on, wrap them all tight, got ready to go. I go to stand up to walk out there. The guy that was on my station blew out his quad.
I
Uh,
saw a pic, man. I saw a video of a dude tearing both his quads yesterday, and I didn't realize it was going to happen because I don't watch that shit. That's
no,
another thing. Like, I don't, do you watch that stuff? I
I
feel like
can't.
anybody that's an actual weightlifter or anyone that's
After
an actual competitor, you don't want to see that. You don't want to
after
see
I
it because it's
dislo
in your fucking head, you know?
after I dislocated my ankle, I can't stomach it. Like I will
Can't do
legit
it.
like get
People will
faint.
send me shit, and I'm like, don't fucking send me that, man.
Oh
Like,
my,
I
my
don't want,
yeah.
it's not a joke. It's not funny. Like, it messes with your head. Like,
My
especially if you had issues. Like,
Yeah, it's not fun. But yeah, so like the guy blew out his quad or pulled his quad. He did something to his knee. So I'm sitting there thinking like, are they just gonna pull him off the platform and I got to go out there and go whatever?
like
So like,
what's
I
going on?
sat there. By the time I made the decision to take my knee wraps off, they're like, all right, you got to go. And I was like, fuck. So I'm like walking out there trying to do my knee wraps. They were nowhere near as tight as I needed them to be. Took the bar out of the rack, went down, just got buried. And I'm like, yeah, I'm stuck here.
All right. So since we're on the topic of knee wraps, right?
Yeah.
So like I will say that like when I was doing weightlifting, and I was doing just like, like a really light, almost like an ace bandage, really,
Mhm.
like you really just used ace bandages to wrap around. It was really light. I didn't notice any like extra, viscosity or any like spring in my joints at all when I was doing that. Is that what you use when you use wraps mainly, or did you use big,
No,
thick
so
ass
I
powerlifting
use
wraps?
my sponsors at the time, Serious Steel. I still work with them for people who are going to start losing their shit. I'm an independent contractor with them. But they were sponsoring me at the time. They sent me their powerlifting wraps, and they're really nice. I still have them. They're
But they were
great.
thick though.
Yeah, they were thick.
Okay,
They were like the 2 meter wraps.
because what I was gonna say for me, like I did that all the time and I didn't notice anything. The first time I'll never forget, I went and bought online. I don't remember how I came about it, but it was Mark Bell's slingshot wraps. He had these
Oh yeah, yeah,
super thick ass. They were red wraps and they were so elastic. They were like super hardcore. And I put those on, and the very first time I put those on, I got a 50-pound fucking PR in my
yeah,
squat. Literally added 50 pounds to my squat immediately.
yeah.
So like I would definitely say there's some advantage there, but that's me being like a 94 kilo lifter, like weakling. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure once you get up into the 8, 9 thousand pound mark, it can't really be, or is it? Does it
That's the thing is
still add 50 pounds? Or once
I
you get
don't
up to
know.
that point, like is that even a fucking issue?
So I feel like honestly, based on what I have seen, so like I like watching powerlifting. I have zero desire to compete in it, but I like watching it. So if I got to pick like right now, like my top three like favorite squatters to watch is Dan Bell, Ray Williams, and that Jesus Oliveras. And the one thing I notice about those guys, like that just it blows my mind, is their range of motion. I mean, they're not small guys. Like I've stood next to Ray Williams, and he makes me feel like a child. Like he is a large human being. Jesus Oliveira, I've been
Yeah,
told is a big dude too. I don't know how big Dan Bell is. I know he's a little bit lighter than those guys, like in like the lower threes, maybe even like the upper twos. But like their movement in the squat is so compact. And I wonder, like Dan Bell, I know uses knee wraps. Ray Williams has done both. Like he's done sleeve lifts and he's done squat wraps. And then Jesus Oliveras, it seems like he only does knee sleeves. But like the thing that I notice about those guys is like, yes, like everybody talks about, oh, shorter range of motion, shorter range of motion. Like they're both like Ray Williams and Jesus Oliveras, I believe, are both like 6'2". Like
yeah.
Ray Williams was he was I'm pretty sure he either on a practice squad or a training camp or whatever. He was an NFL defensive tackle. Like he is a big boy. And so it's just whenever I hear people talking about, oh, it's because they have a shorter range of motion. Like I don't think it's those guys having a range of motion like shortened or whatever. I just think it's just their technique is just so compact. Like they have figured out how to move the most amount of weight in the shortest distance possible.
It's joints. A lot of it is just some people have bigger joints, and
Yeah.
they just have a bigger structure. And I'm trying to find his name. I can't freaking. It's escaping me. I freaking hung out with the guy and had lunch with him. But he was an Olympic gold medalist, Russian. He was on the same team as Dmitry Klokov. Taranovsky, is that how you pronounce his
Are you
name?
talking about Taranenko?
Ternenko, yeah, yeah. Is Alexei Ternenko or something like that, right?
So I don't remember. There was a bunch of guys back in like the 70s, 80s, and like early 90s. There's Taranenko, Pisarenko, there's Alexei Alexeyev, who's like got a bunch of the world records and stuff like that. There's Andrei Chamerkin, who was like another big Andrei Chamerkin was the first guy to declare 600 pounds in a competition, and he got under it, but he didn't like catch the lift.
Uh,
And
Toro
then
Kitio,
oh, Tarakti.
Tarakti, yeah, there you go,
He
Tarakti.
he's Ukraine.
Ukrainian. Okay, there you go. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, he
Sorry from all my
when I
all
had
my
a
Ukrainian brothers out there. Yeah. So no,
when
I
I
had it. We stayed with him when we went out to California, stayed at Dave Smith,
yeah,
and then went and had freaking lunch with the guy. So, but I say that to say this is that like he was, I think, a 105.
yeah,
Like he was about 230,
yeah.
right? And to think, but his hands and his knees
Oh yeah.
were his kneecaps
Yeah.
were bigger than my thighs. Like, and
He
I
was a
weighed
like a
about
genetics freak.
230. We weighed about the same.
Yeah.
He was a little bit shorter than me, I think, maybe an inch or two. But somehow, even though we weighed the same, he just he was just bigger. I
Yeah.
don't know how to
He was
explain it. He was just bigger, and I
he was
think that that's
dense.
the kind of guy. Yeah, like I remember. There's a kid that was with me that was an intern or whatever, and I remember he sit down there and he's like you have little legs, and he put his hand on his legs and just
Yeah.
squeezed his thighs, and the kid went
Yeah.
like he was just like built different. Like
Yeah.
you hear dudes like I'm built different. Like this motherfucker was built different,
No, he
and
came. I had him out for a seminar when I had the CrossFit in Chicago at Big Shoulders, and he and Putsov came out or whatever.
yeah,
And like Putsov was another like international lifter, but like the two of them does like stark contrast between their two in terms of bodies. Like Putsov looked like a normal human being. Tarakti looked like something you created in a lab.
yeah.
Like he just like it was yeah for me I what like impressed me the most about him was like you said his hands, like he had gigantic hands, and then his elbows, like his whole like forearm into everything, like
That's what I'm saying. His
he was
joints,
a
like his bones were bigger.
yeah.
It's almost like he had a big, like people say I'm big boned. It's like he was big boned. Like
Oh
if
yeah,
you
yeah,
took an x-ray of him, it probably wouldn't look like a normal. They're probably 60% larger than a normal joint,
yeah.
like as far as Risco.
He was definitely, and I feel like for and that's what one of the things like I was talking to one of my athletes about this. We were talking about Olympic lifters and why um the US still has this issue. Like as far as I'm concerned, it's still a problem where we have excuse me, we have these phenoms, so to speak, that come up through the youth and the junior ranks, and they are like the next greatest thing since sliced bread. They get 3 or 4 years into their senior career and they're either done or they're just they never max out their potential. And everybody's always asking me like, what is going on or whatever. And my whole process is that just they don't have the bone density to like keep up because like you look at like these Chinese lifters, like I've seen it when the worlds were in Anaheim that one year. We were out there because the AO finals was after, so we went out like a couple days before just so we could see some of these like world lifters. And it's like, while like yes, these Chinese guys in the 67 kilo or at the time the 69 kilo class or the 77 kilo class, like those are significantly smaller weight classes than me. They're freaking gigantic, like in stature. Like they are bodybuilder-esque, big joints, you
Yeah, but do
know.
you think that I mean, is that like causation or correlation? Because like,
Well, so I know in China, like they flat out measure you when you're a kid and determine what sport you're gonna do. They flat
yeah,
out are like, you are built to do this, you are built to do that. So I think it's for China, it's a little bit of like both, so to speak. And I think it's built upon as they move through their like system and stuff like that. But you look at over there, like like the European countries and stuff like that. I feel like it's just because like I remember Glenn telling a story about how Russia of all people consider the US barbaric in terms of how we do hockey with our kids. So
yeah.
like in Russia, like they're and I don't know how true this is. Somebody will probably correct me. I'm not a huge like hockey buff, but he was saying like in Russia, like the kids are not allowed to check until they're 18, until like they're at like the college level. And they
Well,
think that,
we're brutal in all of our sports
well, right, but
except
that's
for
that.
weightlifting.
Well, that
Yeah.
was there. They were saying like they think that we are absolutely barbaric for letting our kids at like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old check kids and hit stuff and like whatever. And I feel like that mentality has to factor in some form or fashion in terms of like development, bone density, like allowing kids to like, you know, grow through a system and like keeping the injuries down and stuff like that and allowing their bodies to like fully adapt. Like CJ Cummings, for instance, I love Ray Williams. I love CJ and all the stuff that he's doing, but like he hasn't done a ton in the last 2 years. And I wonder if all of the just the repeated, like, because I mean, for a good like 2 to 3 years, he was doing youth worlds, junior worlds, senior worlds, you know, in a year. And then you throw in Pan Ams where he'd be doing youth Pan Ams, junior Pan Ams, senior Pan Ams. Then if he had to do a qualifying competition where it was like at senior nationals or one of these other nationals or whatever, guy was doing like 7 or 8 big meets a year, putting
So
up
you're
over
saying
100.
it's the training mileage that does this, you
I
think?
think it's the
Because
not paying.
I would argue to say that the Russians and the Chinese and you know if you go back in like the Bulgarians in the 80s, I think that they're way more volume based as far as just like load and constant stress on the body. If anything, I were to say, and I know this is, you know, blah, blah, whatever, but like here it is, Justin talking about drugs again. But if anything, I would say it's growth hormone. When I look at these guys and the bone density and their ability
Yeah.
to recover and their ability to be resilient as they grow, like, you know, to me, that yells exaggerated growth hormone. I
Yeah, but
mean,
see, like the conversations that I've had, it's not as big of a thing until they're towards like they're getting towards like the prime slash twilight of their careers. Like a lot of the European guys and stuff like that that I've had a chance to talk to and stuff, they don't really do stuff until they are fully into the senior. It's not like everybody thinks that like they've got like 13-year-old kids that they're juicing up. Yes, obviously some countries are different.
yeah,
Like there's an 18-year-old right now that like I'm sorry, but the kid's like juicing out of his mind. Um, I want to say he's from
you
Bulgaria.
have phenoms, right? And like, I
Yeah,
mean, and the thing is that like, I just think it's just a matter of in Russia and in China, the phenoms go into the Olympic circuit,
yeah.
and in America, the phenoms go into the NFL. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just that simple. I think
It's
it's that
still like
simple.
I feel like we were on a good pace for a while there because and I've actually talked to a couple of people higher up at USA Weightlifting about this because I feel like for a while there we were very invested in our youth and junior athletes and I feel like now that those youth and junior athletes are our senior athletes, we're not putting that investment back into the youth and junior groups. And again, that's just me being a developmental coach, noticing like the trends and stuff like that. Like, I just don't see a ton of people coming up through the ranks to take the place of, you know, the Matty Rogers and the CJ Cummings and the Harrison Morris and not Harrison Morris. Yeah, no, Harrison Morris. Yeah, because we have Hampton Morris and Harrison Morris.
Do you think that's
Harris,
dying with the popularity of CrossFit? As the popularity of CrossFit's going down? Do you think the popularity of weightlifting's going down?
I think the
Because it
two of
definitely rose with it.
I think the two of them split a while back. I really do. I think CrossFit started to go on a decline and weightlifting continued to rise for
Okay.
another few years. I really just think it's just the fact that we don't have a ton of investment in our lower ranks. And I also do think that decentralizing the headquarters, so to speak, for weightlifting, I think that played a lot into it as well. When everybody was able to start keeping their personal coaches and stuff like that, I feel like that also caused a lot more issues in terms of finances, in terms of having those funds and those resources to be able to invest. Because, like, I mean, there was one point in time when D'Angelo Osario and Ian Wilson, as junior athletes, were making more money than some of our senior athletes, and a couple of the guys at MDUSA were pissed off about it.
Yeah.
And it was just because like they saw the potential in these guys. They knew that they were going to be big, you know, big shooters, and they invested in them. Now, did it pan out for those two in particular? I mean, that's up for debate. We didn't necessarily yield a ton of international medals from them, but like they were good athletes when they competed and stuff. CJ Cummings was another one. Like they invested a ton in CJ Cummings, and yes, he's he competed at the Olympics. He was one of the youngest to compete in an A session at Worlds and stuff like that. I don't know if he's medaled. I know he's medaled at Pan Ams and stuff along those lines. I can't remember if he's medaled at Worlds, but like you got Matty Rogers, who medaled at like I think like 3 or 4 straight Worlds. Kate Nye medaled at the Olympics. Harrison Morris, medaled at Worlds. So like that paid off, in my opinion, for those athletes. But like this next group of people coming up, you just don't see that same moxie like coming in to fill those ranks. And I feel like that's where the big like going back to our main original topic, I feel like that's where the big drop off between us and the other countries still is because they have those people just constantly filling the next role that is left open. And those kids just have the time to develop and train and create that bone density and that adaptation to the training. I don't think drugs is as big of a deal anymore as it used to be. I still think it is like a problem, but I really do feel like the playing field is about as level as it's going to be. And so people need to stop using that excuse, and we just need to figure out a better way to, you know, fund our and fund and provide resources to our younger lifters so they can eventually perform for us on the senior stage.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll have to defer to your expertise on that because I'll just be flat out. Ever since I broke my neck and had to stop competing in weightlifting, I really kind of purposely walked away from it for a long time, just out of like sadness. And I've only recently gotten back into it, since
Yeah,
I've been coaching again, which I love it. So, but I feel like I'm one of those. It's like it's that factor where like when you stop paying attention to something, you just assume because it's less in your world, you assume that it's less in the world. You know what I mean? So like
yeah,
because I wasn't obsessed with weightlifting anymore, it kind of fell off my feed. Like we were talking about algorithms, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
I don't have as much weightlifting in my algorithms anymore. I have other things in there. And so that's why to me it's just kind of died off. But like you said, the thing is that you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, it's all finances. It's all finances. Like if we
mhm,
don't have a good financial basis to support our athletes, then there's not going to be that feeder system there. That's always been the reason why Russians and the Chinese are better in weightlifting. And until that happens and changes, then it's going to stay the same as it is now. But like, we were working towards that with things like Muscle Driver that you were at, and then like some of these other programs where we were getting
yeah,
sponsorships and all this other kind of stuff. And so like I feel like there can be avenues there, and I felt like it was going up for a little bit, but I feel like and like I said, I still kind of go back to this thing. I feel like as CrossFit kind of died, I feel like the overall just strength sports has kind of fallen off a little bit from that. Maybe not so much powerlifting, but powerlifting was never an Olympic sport. So it was always kind of with these convoluted 1,000 different federations type thing. So
yeah.
like, I don't know. I think then obviously we got in trouble a little bit because of the IWF was talking about pulling, or the IOC was talking about pulling
But we were out of the Olympics up until
weightlifting.
recently, up
Yeah.
until last
So,
year.
and I think that probably killed a lot of it as well. But like, yeah, I guess it's the chicken or the egg. I don't know. Like, is it this finances that's killed it, or have all these other things? Like, why is it here?
Yeah,
So, but it's sad. I hope that it can grow because, you need sponsors. We need big weightlifting sponsors if we want to grow weightlifting back again. And me personally, like, I only got out of it because I was jaded and sad that I couldn't compete in it. And, but I think I've found like a new love for the coaching side of
yeah.
it now, yet again here, even though I can't necessarily, be at that level myself. So, I would really like to see it get back big again. So,
I mean, and like I said, I think if you go to like a national event, it's better than it's ever been. Like I feel bad for whoever the meet director is at this meet, but if you always, everybody always compares things to the roller rink nationals, where we literally were like doing that. I think it was the 2000, I want to say it was the 2013 senior nationals. We were literally in a roller rink in the middle of nowhere outside of Cincinnati, and it had like the funfetti on the walls and everything like that.
I'm all for that though.
And
I'm
like
here for it.
oh, I thought it was the Nationals I performed the best at, to be
Yeah,
honest
like
with you. So like I
let's
can't,
have it like a duathlon or whatever, where you got to
yeah,
skate around the rink 20
oh
times
my
and
God,
then
dude.
grab a
It
barbell.
was it was one of those, I guarantee you when they went to go do couple skate after that meet was over, people were pissed off. They were tripping everywhere from all the dents in the floor. I will go on a limb and say that we fucked that floor up. But anyways, but like you go now and it is like a major production. Like USAW has grown. It is taking it to a new level. Like there are a lot of sponsors that are involved and stuff like that. It's just I don't know necessarily. I don't know what it's going to take to get us to like the next level, if that makes sense, of like the dominance level. Because like
I
we
feel
do
like
have
you're
a
talking
couple,
about powerlifting. I feel like powerlifting has grown. And when I see kids in the gym now, I see these young, kids, guys and girls most of them are deadlifting, squatting, and benching. I very rarely see now people doing snatch, clean, and jerk.
Yeah, but
And
I think that more has to do with lower barrier of entry. Like, no offense to powerlifting, it's competitive accessory work. And
you don't think it
it's
has to
one of
do
the
more with like the bodybuilding aspect and how it can correlate into like power building and things like that?
I think it has
Because
more
I
to
think
do with
dudes
the
just want to
fact
be jacked and like, and you see like these like
I
fit
agree.
pump people.
They do, but I also think it has more to do with the fact that their attention spans will not allow them enough time to learn how to snatch or clean and jerk properly.
It
Because
could be, yeah.
at this day and age, you're like you take a weightlifter, like a top tier weightlifter, they're just as jacked as your top tier power lifters, in my opinion. Like somebody, and I'm not talking about the super heavyweights. I'm talking about like
Yeah,
the
I don't.
guys in the 96 kilo class, the 89 kilo class. Like they're just as jacked because training methodologies have moved along that accessory work is prioritized. You
Maybe at
got
a
guys.
higher level, maybe at a higher level, but I think at the entry level, I think when you look at a weightlifter and you look at a power lifter, you're going to see a better physique on a power lifter than a weightlifter. And generally you're going to see a power lifter, you know, doing way more actually just being stronger than, you
Mhm.
know, a weightlifter. It's like, "Oh, I put 75 kilos over my head." Okay, but like that's
I think
great. Your
strong.
form looks
So
good.
I think
Like
stronger.
it
I think
comes back to that. Would you rather have a strong athlete or an athlete with good lifting? You know,
Yeah,
like
I mean, I think that that's all relative as well, and just depends on what your goal is. Because like I said, I was a strength coach at a high school, for 4 years or whatever, and we had kids who competed in powerlifting and stuff like that. And there's two students in particular that I remember working out together. If you would just like go off of the eye test, you would have thought one was way stronger than the other, but it was inversely the other way around.
it
Like
could
so,
be. You're right.
it's just one of those situations where I think it's a case by case basis. But if we're talking about just like today's youth, they are impatient and they have shiny object syndrome, and
Oh yeah,
powerlifting just appeals to them
ADD
easier.
culture for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But
and the other
well,
thing,
hold on now. Hold on. I will say this, and one of the reasons why I think that this is more towards the argument of powerlifting as well, like as far as like for bodybuilding, is like you're not going to see anybody doing sets of 12 of snatch or
right?
sets of 12 on clean and jerk. You're going to see them doing sets of 10, 12, 8 on back squat or deadlift. And like that's where that time under tension happens or whatever. It's like
Yeah,
the old saying, I'll never forget the Hodge twins. Now they're like political commentators. Back in the day, they had a video, it's my favorite video in the world. And they're like, somebody called in, is like, do you think that clean and jerk is a good muscle building movement? He
oh, I
goes,
remember
clean
this
and
video.
jerk,
I remember this
man,
video.
you build more muscle in a circle jerk than you clean and
Yeah,
jerk.
I remember that
You
video.
ain't gonna build no muscle in a clean and jerk. You build more muscle in a circle jerk than a clean and jerk.
Yeah, that those guys are, but
Ridiculous, man. But yeah, it's so funny to see how they've gone too, or whatever. Well, on that terrible bombshell, it
yeah,
is
we
time to
just
end the show.
completely ruined it. Way to
And
go.
we completely ruined weightlifting and powerlifting. It's gone forever on that terrible bombshell. It is time
Yeah,
to end the show. For Tom Schroka, I am Justin Metz. We have been the heavyweights. Please tune in next time, guys. We'll catch you later.
see you. See you.